daughters blame me for not keeping my late wife's last wish moments before she left the world. 6 years ago, my wife passed away after a short illness that hit us out of nowhere. One day she was smiling, sitting up in her hospital bed, talking about coming home, and the next day she was gone. The night before she passed, she joked, "If I die, you're not allowed to date anyone else." I laughed because it didn't sound serious. I even told her she'd live to regret saying that. She smiled, and we both thought she was getting better. Our daughters were in the room too, and they heard everything. To them, it didn't sound like a joke. None of us could imagine that less than 24 hours later, she'd be gone. When the doctors told us there was nothing more they could do, it was like the world stopped. I remember the sound of my daughters crying. That day, everything changed. For the next 6 years, I tried my best to fill both the mom and dad roles. I woke up early, cooked breakfast, helped with homework, sat through school plays and heartbreaks. Dating never even crossed my mind. When my youngest left for college this August, the silence in the house was deafening. I'd spent years being dad, every second of every day, and suddenly it was just me in the empty rooms. I'd been in a few support groups for widowed spouses, and over time, I'd made some close connections. There was one woman, around my age, who had lost her husband the same year I lost my wife. We'd both carried that quiet grief for years. We started talking more often, sharing stories about our families, and eventually, we decided to meet for coffee. It wasn't a romantic setup. It was just two people who understood each other's loneliness. But coffee turned into lunch, then dinner, and I realized I liked being around her. She was kind, funny, and patient. We didn't even hold hands at first. It was slow, natural. For the first time in years, I laughed without feeling guilty. Still, I kept it private. I didn't want to shock my girls or make them feel like I'd replaced their mom. Then came the dinner that changed everything. We went to a local restaurant, nothing fancy. We'd just ordered when our waitress walked up, and it was one of my older daughter's high school friends. She greeted me warmly, said it was nice to see me, and smiled at the woman I was with. I didn't think anything of it. She'd always been kind to my daughter, and I figured she might just mention it later in passing. But that night, my phone rang, and my daughter's name flashed on the screen. When I answered, she was crying, yelling that I was cheating on her mom, that I broke the promise I made before she died. She said I was disrespecting her memory, and that it made her sick to think of me with someone else. Her words hit hard. I tried to explain, but she wasn't listening. I finally told her I loved her too much to fight over the phone and hung up. After that call, I just sat in the dark for a long time. The guilt hit me like a wave. I wasn't doing anything wrong, but it felt like maybe I was. I barely slept that night, just thinking about my wife's words, my daughter's pain, and how impossible it all felt. The next morning, my wife's sister texted me. She said my daughter had called her crying. My sister-in-law told her I had every right to move on, that her sister's comment years ago wasn't serious, and that love doesn't die when someone passes. She said her whole family supported me finding happiness again. That message helped, but my heart still ached. I didn't want my daughter thinking I'd chosen someone new over her mom. So I called her the next morning and asked if I could come see her at college. She agreed, so I drove an hour to meet her for breakfast. When I saw her, she looked nervous and tired. I could tell she'd been crying. We sat down in a small diner near her campus, and I told her how much I missed her mom. I reminded her that her mom's joke wasn't meant to trap me into being alone forever. I told her that I'd always honor her memory, but I also couldn't live my entire life without companionship. We talked for a long time, about grief, about memories, about how life feels different now. She finally admitted that when she found out I was on a date, it felt like losing her mom all over again. I told her I understood completely, and promised I'd never try to replace her mother or hide things from her again. We walked around campus afterward, talking about little things, her classes, her new friends, how much she missed home sometimes. She said her younger sister had also talked to her, and told her she was being unfair, that I deserved to be happy. That made her rethink things. Before I left, she hugged me, and said she was still adjusting, but she understood. She even apologized for yelling at me.